Oh, he doesn't have a vote thing. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just as a reminder, this is July, thank you, God, and so we only have one meeting this month, and this is it. So you won't have to see us for the rest of the month. Have a vacation. We have a quorum here, and so I've asked Miss Mary Campbell to come lead us in the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I know it's summer, but I don't want to take away from anybody, but if we have anyone that has 30 seconds in my district, I'll let you all go ahead and start. Do you, Ms. Pierce?
I do. So this past week, the scores for AP and IB tests were released on, I think, July 5th. And so Hillsborough had 23 students receive the full IB diploma. 5 of those had perfect scores. And this is about 56% of the eligible students, which is, I think, a 12% increase over last year. So they're very excited about that. And then they had 28 students receive IB career-related certificates, which is also an increase over what they did last year. So we want to congratulate those students, and their names will be listed in the honor wall at Hillsborough.
Anybody over here? Okay.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say the schools in my district, and I'm sure the other districts are doing a great job using their marquees and their communications channels to help us recruit school crossing guards, which is a key function to keeping everybody safe. So if anyone out there is interested in applying to be a school crossing guard, you can call 615-862-7752. Again, 615-862-7752. It's a good job protecting kids. Thanks.
All right, we'll move along to public participation. Our community, the board will hear from those persons who have requested to appear at this board meeting. And in the interest of time, speakers are requested to limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less, and the comments will be timed. We have 2 people tonight. We have Ms. Erica Lanier and Daryl Washington. Ms. Lanier?
Oh, it's already started. Okay. There will be a test at the end. According to CNN, a student under the age of 13 commits suicide every 5 days. A bright 12-year-old student writes, "I want to kill myself," on a piece of paper. A teacher retrieves the note and takes it to the school counselor. The school counselor, who has sat in IEP meetings regarding the student all year and heard reports of bullying, does nothing and says nothing. In fact, it is over 3 months later, in the final IEP meeting of the school year, that administration and the parents are made aware of the note. It is not the school counselor who brings up the note. When questioned, she cannot even locate the note, but rather the teacher that is able to join the IEP meeting for the first time. Had the teacher not been able to join that meeting, over 3 months later, no one would have ever known about this note. The counselor has since provided a statement that when the teacher brought the note down, she was busy with another student and decided to allow her unlicensed intern to handle the situation. Meanwhile, our 12-year-old is being told by a teacher, "If you were half as intelligent as you look in your new glasses, you wouldn't be failing my class." On another occasion, a teacher tells him he is Walls, which is backwards slow. The dominoes continue when one of his classmates tells him, "If you died, I wouldn't even come to your funeral." Now, there are many things wrong with this scenario. Today, I focus on the school counselor who did not follow MNPS or state protocol, the counselor who stated that she did not believe there was any threat of harm, that told the parents their child was failing and pushed them to sign a retention form during the final IEP meeting, but did not inform them of the suicide note their child wrote. The counseling department and one of Dr. Joseph's executive officers only now offers resources to the family that they were told repeatedly by the counselor could not be provided, and state that they will talk to the counselor. Today, I ask the board to update their bullying policy and have parents and students actively participate in the related work sessions. I ask Dr. Joseph to hold his staff fully accountable and take necessary actions that should be clear to all of us. Here's your quiz. If a student under the age of 13 commits suicide every 5 days, and this non-action occurs in just one school, how many students are we putting at risk? Answer: one too many.
Thank you. Mr. Washington? Is Daria Washington here? Miss Washington.
Good evening. In October 2017, I first addressed issues at Martin Luther King Jr. Academic Magnet High School, specifically teachers' refusals to return student tests or provide specific feedback to students. Based on the school's untimely and unsatisfactory response, I lodged several complaints with central office. During the 2017-2018 academic school year, the 7th grade team truly lived up to their reputation as being the weed-out team. They utilized common practices such as use of over-complex, non-age-appropriate third-party resources, failed to provide classroom instruction on these resources, in other words, just pushed paper, lacked differentiation to account for student learning styles, promoted excessive amounts of homework, often over 2 to 3 hours nightly, several of which were ungraded, failed to provide retake opportunities in direct violation of both MLK, internal and MNPS retake policies, and used or had unexplained, non-policy guided renegade use of multipliers to negatively manipulate student grades. I also want to address the 7th grade team's intimidation of students, including derogatory comments to students, which was brought to the attention of the administration and attempted to be handled internally. Retaliation of targeting of students whose parents voiced concerns over these issues, and the specific disrespect of teachers towards parents. Insubordination at MLK is also rampant, as both the principal and the assistant principal gave directives to teachers which were ignored. In a meeting with Dr. Lindosia Edwards, she told me that she had also tried to give directives, and that the teachers had rights and she could not tell the staff at MLK how to teach in their classroom. As MLK continues to foster a hostile environment, student success is hampered by lackadaisical, insubordinate, and insensitive 7th grade teachers who continue to do business as usual to the students' disadvantage. MLK continues to violate both state and federal policy with regards to special education protocols and student safety. As a taxpayer, a parent, and a concerned citizen, I want to publicly express my disappointment in both Dr. Joseph and his executive administrative staff for their failure to appropriately act on these complaints or provide follow-up. Simply put, MLK and MNPS has failed the 7th grade families in the 2017-2018 academic year. The continual issues contribute to a hostile learning environment. Students operate under non-realistic academic goals, resulting in extraordinary amounts of stress, poor mental health, and even contemplations of suicide, which in one instance was unaddressed by the licensed school counselor. The boiler room approach is not working for our students, and the culture and the climate must change. Students are MLK's customers, a fact that I think the 7th grade team has largely ignored. Student success should be the primary focus of all MNP teachers, and it is problematic when apathetic, unresponsive, uncaring, and complacent teachers believe their right to teach supersedes the students' rights to a quality education. Our students deserve better, and fostering their academic, social, and mental success is paramount. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda, governance issues, our organization. Ms. Barrett?
Ms. Rowe?
May I pull?
Oh, okay, all right.
I would like to pull A1D29, the new teacher project.
And I'm pulling 11 contracts, under 1D, number 2, number 6, number 18, number 10, number 11, number 14, 15, 23, 31, 32, and 33.
Could you repeat those, please?
You want Amy to repeat hers as well?
Yeah. Okay. Mine is A1D29, the new teacher project.
And under contracts, which is 1D, number 2, number 5, number 6, number 8, number 10, number 11, number 14 and 15, number 23, number 31, 32, and 33.
Say 18 at one point?
I think she meant
18?
No, you said 8?
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. The consent agenda reads as follows. Recommended approval of supplement number 1 for Hillwood High School replacement facility, Hastings Architectural Associates LLC. B, recommended approval of supplement number 3 for Tusculum Elementary School classroom additions, Binkley Garcia Architecture and Interior Design. Number C, recommended approval of change order number 4 for Martin Luther King Jr. Magnet School additions and renovations, American Constructors. D, awarding of purchases and contracts. Number 1, American Alliance for Innovative Systems. Number 3, Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, ASCD, which are 2 contracts. Number 4, multiple awardees of USDA commodities with 15 contracts. 5, Catapult Learning with 2 contracts. 7, East End Preparatory School. Number 9, Hermitage Hall. Number 12, Lipscomb University. Number 13, Mazzarno Research, LLC. Number 16, Mohawk Rubber Sales of New England. 17, NCS Pearson, Inc. 18, Personal Computer Systems, Inc., PSC. 19, Public Consulting Group, Inc., PCG, 2 contracts. 20, Scholastic Incorporated. 21, Solutions Tree, Inc., 22, Staff Development for Educators, Inc., SDE. 24, Board of Control for South Regional Education, doing business as Southern Regional Education Board, SREB. 25, Specialized Education of Tennessee, Inc. 26, Sprint Corporation. 27, Stellar Therapy Services, LLC, STS. 28, Teacher Created Materials. 30, True Core Behavioral Solutions, LLC. And 34, Youth Opportunity Investments, LLC. Madam Chair, this concludes the reading of the consent agenda. I move to approve as read.
And we have 2 legal claims.
Those are consent agenda. Okay, thank you. E, Legal Settlement Claim C-36797 for $6,000, and F, Legal Settlement Claim C-36798 for $12,000.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Let's vote on the consent agenda as read, please. The consent agenda as read passes unanimously. Ms. Spearing, if I understood you correctly, you wanted to pull those for a Teaching and Learning Committee meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to, Ms. Fogg, did you want to talk about the number one, the one that you pulled? Sure.
So I pulled the new teacher project. The new teacher project is a TFA spinoff that was started by Michelle Rhee. And correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but it's a new name for the now defunct Nashville Teaching Fellows. This has been a politically active group that has promoted, for example, the idea of merit pay based on test scores. And it's an alternative teaching program. And in one study, which is 5 years old, I don't have more recent data, but one study by the Tennessee Higher Education Commission found that the TNTP Memphis location regularly produced underperforming teachers. So I'm voting against this for several reasons. I'm not sure about the efficacy of the program. I would like for us to be using highly qualified and highly trained teachers that are going through teaching programs like Vanderbilt, which is the best education program in the country. And I guess I don't really have questions unless anyone wants to address if anything was incorrect that I said, but I understand this to be a name change for the Nashville Teaching Fellows.
And a contract extension.
And a contract extension, yes. What item? It's 29. Yeah.
I can speak to the process. I don't know if Dr. Felder or Dr. Mary Clark have any comments regarding what you had just said, but I'll speak really quickly to the process. This, along with several others, these are amendments to contracts that the board previously approved back in 2015 to provide professional development for teachers. Most, if not all of these, are a menu of professional development offerings that schools have available to them if they want to use them. It's an extension of 2 years to the contract and not an increase to any of the compensation on the contract, but just, again, I could speak to the process, but not to the qualification of the vendor or to any of your concerns.
Mary Clark from Federal Programs, and as soon as the Uniform Grant Guidance Act was passed in December of 2014, in 2015, we worked with purchasing to do an RFP for teacher professional development and leadership development. And the idea was to offer schools a menu of professional development options that would be compliant with federal guidance because they would have been RFP'd. And this TNTP, among some of the others, were selected by that RFP committee in 2015. And the contract for TNTP is set to expire, for this contract with TNTP is set to expire the end of this month. And this was simply a way to extend the contract for 2 more years. If a school did want to use it, they could compliantly use it. There's no additional money being asked to put on this contract. I just wanted to tell you the clarity. It was just a group. It was one of a group that was selected in 2015 by a committee, and we were seeking to extend the expiration date so that we would still have this menu of options for schools. We're not adding any money at this time to this contract. That's what I know about it.
Madam Chair, it's strictly for professional development.
Okay, Ms. Pierce?
So that was my question. It's for professional development, not for hiring teachers.
No.
Okay, so that sounded like that was Ms.
The
Fro's
RFP
concern.
was for teacher pedagogy.
Right, so not actual teachers.
No.
Thank you.
So even though the contract expires at the end of the month, you know, how teachers are able to take enroll for professional development classes over the summer, when would be the last date that they would offer that at Martin Center or wherever they offer it? Like, let's say that we were to vote this down today, what would be the last date for them to offer professional development?
We don't know that a school is, no one is using this contract at this very moment.
Okay.
We were simply trying to extend this and a number of others that were RFP'd so that before they expired, in case a school did want to use them, we would have an RFP'd vendor for them for PD.
It's to provide schools with options
yeah.
should they
Gotcha.
want professional development
Especially for Title I funds,
using Title I funds.
And just to, I recognize that it's just for professional development. I would just like to see us using better programming. We have a lot of great universities that have great education programs here, and I'd like to see us using those programs instead of programs from these types of sources. So.
Well, hold on, didn't you say that it came from it was an RFP, so it was a group of professionals that opted into TNTP? So are you asking for us to look at the process, or you're just?
I'm just objecting to this particular organization. That's all.
Okay.
Anybody else with any questions, comments? Ladies, appreciate that. So I would entertain a motion to approve the 13 contracts that were pulled until such date we can have a,
You want to do
Teacher.
Amy's first?
we can do them all together, right? All 13, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'd like to respond to that, but I
Okay.
have some comments to make first. The 11 contracts that I pulled are for professional development and also interventions, reading and some math. As was explained, they are like a smorgasbord of opportunities that schools will have for their own professional development at their school level that will come out of their school budgets. Another 13 were just approved, which cost, which total 3.6 million. The 11 that I pulled are total 2.4 million. I was on a conference call yesterday with David Sevier and David Williams and Ty Hovac and Marcy Gabella, and we talked about these different, some of these, we only had 45 minutes, but we talked about some of these contracts. And one of the comments was made to me about the Wilson, that the research really wasn't all that good, but yet the contract is on here for $100,000. So with the fact that we already are going to the council, actually already have asked the council for $3.5 million from our reserve. We also have a $7.5 million we can call it, expenditures that have not been accounted for that will be, if I understand correctly, consolidated in August. And so we've got some budget concerns, and to go forward with this 2.4 million. These will all increase the budget. The one that Amy talked about, and the ones that are on the agenda that were just passed, all have a clause that say this amendment does not increase the compensation under this contract. The ones I pulled do not say that. They will increase compensation. And I don't know if you're aware that just 5 days into the new fiscal year, teachers were scheduled to participate in an SEL 3-day conference. That conference, it wasn't a conference, I'm sorry, it was professional development, 3-day professional development. They were to get $85 a day. They planned their vacation, their summer vacations around this professional development that they had signed up for. They also were expecting the $200 and some odd that would go along with that training. All of that was canceled due to budgetary constraints. Now, if we're already 5 days into the fiscal year and having to cancel professional development because of budgetary constraints, I just want us to take our time before we just rubber stamp what's on the consent agenda, and I would like to see us have a Teaching and Learning Committee meeting and talk about these 11 contracts. I'd like to see data that they're working. Wilson has been around for many years, at least 10 years, maybe many more than that. I'd like to see the data for Wilson and all of these other contracts. Not only locally, but also nationally. Going back to the fact that the teachers were not able to attend the SEL training, they will have an opportunity to attend a training similar to what they missed this summer, but it will be done during the school year. And during the school year, that is going to impact classroom instruction. They'll have to have a substitute teacher, and we know what happens when we have substitute teachers. The learning that would normally happen in the classroom is curtailed. So I think this is problematic. And let me see if there's anything else I wanted to share. So here's my motion. I moved to schedule a teaching and learning committee meeting in August to give staff time to gather data on the 11 interventions or contracts, and then vote on the contracts in late August.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Are we going to use our iPads to vote? Oh, is there anyone want to discuss this?
Well, I do.
Okay.
Because you bring up an interesting point, Ms. Spearing. A few weeks ago, after the referendum failed at the council level, I started doing some research, digging through the charter, and of course had several members of the community, parents, a couple of principals, some teachers reach out to me to ask about our place in the charter and our adding a referendum to the August ballot. It took hours of work. I appreciate the staff here that helped me with that. I appreciate Metro Finance for getting back with me so quickly, Mrs. Harkey, who's not here, for helping with the language. Before I jump into that, I think we may be to blame for why we are having these budgetary issues, because we have caused Nashville and the greater community to lose faith in us. And when I say us, I don't just mean the board, I mean MNPS. People have a very hard time separating MNPS administration from the MNPS school board. MNPS administrators, I lump them in the same category as I do with teachers, as I do with bus drivers, as I do with support staff. They are all impacting children. When I was a teacher, I was impacted by things that the board did. And I think that's the point that we're at right now. We have negatively impacted the school district that we were voted to support. And I think when I started doing this research, it would have been great to have had some of these robust conversations around this so that a new board member like me could gain a better understanding, so that community members that do want to provide more funding to schools could ask questions, could have some time to come and speak with us. And we didn't even give them that chance because we've been bickering, we've been having a lot of kind of sidebar conversations that really aren't doing our students justice. At the end of the day, what I came up with, what I asked these administrators to help me with, I had to pull them from their own work. But this may not have been the best product because we had to rush through it. But it would have been great to have some conversations around it. Not only that, but to have council members approach me once they did find out that I had started this process and say, well, you know, if we trusted you all more, we probably could have passed it. If we had more faith, and sometimes they would say, Dr. Joseph, but realistically that could have been saying administration, or could have been saying MNPS as a whole. If they trusted us more, then they would be giving us more funding. And I think we've done our students a disservice. And as you said, we've done our teachers a disservice, because I was away at premarital counseling and had to miss a meeting and realized that professional development was curtailed because we didn't have the votes. So there's so much that I could say, so much that I could delve into, but we are to blame. I'm just very disappointed in us as a group, and I'm not singling any one person out because, to be honest, we all played a part in this because we did not pull our colleagues to the side. We did not schedule any of these meetings months ago. We could have done all of this. I would have come straight from dropping Christopher off to come to any meeting if we were going to have a really robust one about some of the contracts and the questions, because Ms. Frog and I were actually both at a meeting, the board's role in school finance, where Mr. Henson did a wonderful job. Now, I'll be honest, I love Mr. Henson. He's just another Christopher that I appreciate. But it just worked out well. But he did a really good job of breaking down and explaining to us the budget process. And one resounding takeaway was that it is our job to advocate for funding at both the city and the state level. And we have not been good about that. Nashville does not like us right now, and they should. There are so many great stories happening out there, but they're being drowned out because we can't get our stuff together. So I'm fine with having another meeting, but that meeting needs to be very robust, very transparent, and then we need to let it go. There have been several times that I've voted either for or against something, and I just couldn't have my way. I can't take my ball home and not let anybody else play with it. I move along. We have to get used to understanding that as professional as we are, as much as we are experts in our field, we are not the hired administrators who have doctorate degrees, who have decades of experience, and who are begging us for help, for advocacy. They deserve that. So again, I could say so much, but I just want us to remember that if there are budgetary restraints, we are at least partly to blame for it, because some of this that's being blamed on our administration is not their fault. We say all the time how many awards Mr. Henson has won for MNPS. And I don't want to just say him because he has a strong team also, but our finance, they've been extraordinary. Whenever I have a question, they explain it in plain English to me. When we sat with the council, I know that everybody couldn't get there, but when we sat with the council, Mr. Henson explained time and time again about the $7.3 million. He explained, he answered every question flawlessly. I understood it. I said, okay, well, I get it. It sucks that it happened like this, but what are we going to do better in the future? And I just ask that, I implore us to do that.
Are we done?
I think I'm done for now.
Okay, Mr.
I'm done for
Dixon and
today.
then Ms. Pierce.
Ms. Buggs, you had me at hello. I mean, you're exactly right. This board has failed for more than a decade to make the case for adequate school funding. We finally got our act together and are confronting the state, working with Shelby County to demand more adequate school funding, but it's a local issue too. And I think, what we need to do in this fall when the budget process, well, let's go ahead and start the budget process this fall. Let's not wait until the spring. And then let's use that as an organizing platform to begin educating people about 7 words. We are a chronically underfunded school system,
You
period.
counted those out.
And we need to say that over and over and over again until every Nashvilleian can repeat along with us. And there are several reasons for it. And, I'm not going to beat a dead horse about the unabated growth of charter schools, but there are lots of other reasons for it, including, but not limited to, the fact that when there was a property tax reappraisal, the property tax rate did not go up like it should have. When they keep giving away corporate tax incentives, that costs the school system money, and there ought to be a more healthy balance related to that. So anyway, like I said, you had me at hello. Let's get on it this fall and fix it.
Could I ask?
I had a question. But back to the original motion by Ms. Spearing, my concern is we are less than a month from school starting, and moving these meetings and discussion to August likely after school has started. I want to know how that's going to affect our students and our teachers and all the people that you mentioned that we often hold up as a board when we decide to single out specific programs that we just don't approve of the organizations or something. So can anybody address how that's
Dr.
going to
Felder, do you
impact
feel
the
comfortable in
actual
you and
day-to-day?
your folks addressing that question?
Before she begins, can I ask a question that she can
So
also answer?
schools are required to have interventions, and these interventions were identified through a very transparent RFP process. And so if they're not approved, schools won't have a viable list of options to choose from. But I'm going to let David and Ty speak more to the
Dr.
process.
Felder, required by state law?
Yes.
Thank you.
By state law.
Yes, ma'am. So as Dr. Felder said, David Williams, Executive Officer, Curriculum Instruction. Schools are required to purchase an intervention program, and they do. This current situation, the current state is that they purchase on their own. They engage with vendors into purchasing agreements for intervention programs that they are required to have. The RFP that was solicited on April 16th and proposals were due on April 30th. They went through a two-stage vetting process involving educators for us to identify, based on research, based on the data that we had available to us, what would be the most effective interventions that met state criteria, state-established criteria, that schools could purchase with confidence without schools having to go through the vetting process on their own. So we wanted to do the legwork for the schools so that when they purchase these intervention programs, they can do it with confidence, and we have more control over the contracts at the district level. We have the ability to monitor the implementation and effectiveness of the programs at the district level. The idea is to narrow the scope of the available intervention programs that our schools purchase. And the point of these contracts is to give the schools more of a menu, a smaller, narrower list of those intervention programs, whereas, again, the current state, in contrast to the current state, there could theoretically be 169 different intervention programs out in our district. There's no way to monitor that. There's no way to track the effectiveness of that. So we wanted to do the heavy lifting first and say, let's review these against the state criteria, against nationally vetted research, involving educators through an RFP process. The results of the RFP are the contracts that are up for your approval.
And this is school-based budgeting money.
All of this will come from school-based budgeting because they're required to
Right.
purchase this. So
Right.
none of this will be any additional expenditures by the district.
Right.
The schools are already required to purchase a program. This just allows them to purchase one that's been through an RFP process that they feel more confident with.
Ms. Hunter?
Yes. Have any of these programs been used in the past? For instance, last year, did we use any of these last year, or are they all new?
There are some programs that have been used in the district. I think Ms. Spearing referenced one in particular that has been used in the districts. Unfortunately, we didn't have the capacity to track those interventions, so we don't really have a good idea of the return on investment if students are making progress. So again, going with what was just stated is that we're looking to narrow down the focus so we can actually collect the data to determine what is and is not working. So yes, the answer is some of the interventions have been used, but we're not sure which schools are using them, how many teachers, what the progress has been, because there have been too many to actually identify and track. So
Today, we approved 13 on this consent agenda. How many more are already in process? How many other interventions are already on the menu for schools to choose from? I mean, we know that we have at least 13 that schools can choose from today's contracts.
yeah, so do you mean how many vendors are already approved in the district?
How many contracts have already been approved that schools can choose to use interventions, math or reading interventions that's already been approved that are on this smorgasbord of options that the schools will have? I mean, there's probably more than 13, right? Yeah, okay.
The way that I'm viewing it is the request for proposal that was put out, we are looking to have schools purchase from this list. We're going to limit them to this list. So if there were interventions out there, we're asking them through their budgets to only purchase from this list so that we can track and determine if they're working.
Because these are the ones that have been well vetted.
And how many are on the list? That's my question.
34.
I'm not talking about today. Is this an exclusive list?
Yes.
This
As
is-
of now, this is the request for proposal that was issued. These are the interventions that were vetted through the evidence-based rubric process, and these are the ones that we're going to be asking schools to purchase from. So
And you were going to send me some information today on Wilson. I did not receive that. But you stated the other day, maybe there was a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
You look like you didn't understand that. But
I said that we could, in fact, collect data on teachers that are using Wilson and begin to look at the data and then present that to you in the coming months. But I wouldn't have been able to produce that overnight, sorry.
So how long have we been using Wilson? Let's just take one of them, for example.
I'm going to defer to Debbie McAdams on that one. I've only been in the district a year and a half, so I can't really answer that.
At least 5 years.
At least 5 years, yes.
And we don't have data to see if this is a good intervention. You said there were some questions about it, but we're going to offer it as an option, a viable option, when our data doesn't really look that good. I'm asking that we take the time to look at the data, not only the school data, not only MNPS data, but national data. Is it going to make a major difference if schools, when do schools start interventions? Do they start them as early as? So we have options of 13 that are on here. So couldn't they, I mean, would it be the end of the world for them to have more available to them in September? I mean, would
We
that?
would like to narrow the, I'll answer for me and then, but we would like to narrow the focus. So you're bringing up a good point, and I think that we all talked about that yesterday, that we would like to monitor all intervention programs, but as is, not having enough capacity to monitor 160 different programs, we can't just pick and choose the programs that, so we would like to monitor all the programs, narrow the scope, monitor all the programs. The programs on the list would be monitored.
So all of the programs that are identified tonight will be monitored going forward.
So we have had as many as 160 programs? Did I misunderstand?
Currently, we have over 300 software programs in existence in the district, and that includes assessment programs, intervention programs, instructional, supplementary curriculum programs. That's the latest number I have from Doug Renfro. And so he's of the mind, too, that we need to start narrowing that so that we can actually monitor effectiveness. Right now, it's too much to control, and the reason it's difficult to give you any response in terms of data is that we just simply don't have the capacity to track down and ask every individual school. So, for example, we're doing the similar with assessment. We actually have to send out a survey to ask schools, which assessment programs are you purchasing? Because they don't go through us to purchase them. So this additional step is we're inserting ourselves in the middle of this so that we can guarantee, to the extent that we have reviewed based on the criteria, that these are strong products and the schools can purchase off this list. Right now, they don't purchase off any list. They just purchase, could be any decision that they want to make. They can buy whatever they want. It may be a cousin that they know who runs the company. It could be anything. And that's why they purchase the product. There's no vetting process at all.
So we will go then from 160 maybe or 300 software programs to 24.
Well, again, that high number includes assessment programs. So again, if you ask me how many intervention programs we have currently in the district, I don't have any way of knowing that. But what we wanted to do was, again, sort of wipe a slate clean and say we want to run a transparent RFP process to identify the ones that meet state criteria and are most effective. And let's start to narrow that field so we can track and we do know what's in our schools.
So when we looked at most effective, what data did we look at? Did we look at Metro Schools data? Did we look at national data? Because the most effective part is the key issue here.
And I'll let Ty speak to that a little bit, but part of the criteria upon which they were reviewed included independent third-party research, peer-reviewed. So I'll let Ty can answer that, but that was part of the criteria upon which these were reviewed.
Yeah, just to reiterate kind of what David said, one portion of the criteria is that they had to deliver to us research that was outside of their labs, if you will, and done by independent researchers with a 0.05 or greater effect size. And that is actually consistent with the criteria of more nationally recognized programming. So we used the rubric that had to do with replication, effect size, in populations could be replicated. And if they did not meet that first criteria, they didn't make it to even phase 2.
Wait a minute, Miss.
So I am pleased with the work that you guys are doing. Mary and I, we call ourselves new board members, although we've sat here for 4 years, but this feels very new to me. How long have you been here in Metro Schools?
Me?
Yes.
I taught for 5 years. I was an instructional coach for a year, and this is my 3rd year at the central office.
And so we're seeing all of these good changes, in my opinion. It feels like we're going in the direction that we agreed as a board a couple of months ago to go in. And I think that, this looks good to me because now we can see what we're doing. It is difficult to see it when we have 300 different measures being utilized and there's not any evidence to say that those measures are effective. So I'm happy that our board members ask these questions, but it also helps us to see that there is some change. And I'm happy to see these changes while I still sit here at this table. So what I would ask is that we don't stop progress because we haven't done so in the past. And why do it today? We just can't do that because we can meet later and we can talk about it later. But I think today we need to just continue to move forwards. And I would just want to say to you guys, thank you for helping us to be able to see where we're going. That's all.
Well, I was just going to say, just echo what Ms. Hunter said, because I will say I guess around March, two of our colleagues were asking for a more transparent process. They were asking for RFPs, and not to step on anyone's toes, but so that means that before this year, the board was voting on contracts without having looked at any data and without there being an FRP process and without any of these contracts being vetted, the intervention. So for the first time, the board is okay, well, I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Mr. Pinkston and then Dr. Gentry.
Yeah, I appreciate the work the staff has done, in particular, looking at peer-reviewed research. I do, however, agree with Ms. Spearing that the board needs greater visibility into how these decisions are being made. I think we've been treated like a rubber stamp in the past, and I think we've got an obligation to be more proactive around, particularly around identifying high-quality professional development. I mean, we've baked that into the director evaluation system, and now I think we need to kind of see more evidence that what we're doing is in fact working, and if we're going to be a quote-unquote data-driven organization like we hope to be. We are where we are right now. It's mid-July, and school starts soon, so I'm not inclined to slow down the process now. However, I would like to, Ms. Spearing and others, immediately pivot the discussion into teaching and learning, director evaluation, figure out how to build more accountability and more visibility into how these decisions are made and what we're being asked to vote on, because it's millions and millions of dollars. When you add it all up, I mean, who knows how much it really is. But yeah, I mean, I think it's, good work. We need to do our job better as well, and I think part of that may mean in the next cycle coming at us, sooner than July. But I'm inclined to wave it through tonight.
So I was agreeing with you. We're on that day. But I will say that I think we're teetering on the edge of the sausage making. And I've used this phrase before. Our role is to monitor the impact of, and that's what we do through the director's evaluation, through the committee meetings. We hear the impact of the tools and resources and processes that the central office team has put in place in our schools to reach those targets that we as a board agree to in our strategic plan. And in the annual plan of how we would move forward and achieve what it is we say we wanted to achieve and hold our director accountable. So I would just remind us, or would just suggest rather, that the director's evaluation and the two board meetings we have a month is where we monitor the decisions that the central office team makes. So on the agenda, we put professional development and these 20, however many contracts it is, some sort of a matrix or rubric, how many schools are using them, what are the KPIs they're using to say this is a good vendor, where should we see impact as a result of using vendor A, vendor B, vendor C, all the way through the 26 letters of the alphabet. But we already have processes in place to monitor that. Our job is not to get into the decision-making of how a vendor gets selected. There may be some high-level overview to just so that we're aware in case to, as Ms. Bugs repeated examples, if a constituent asks, because what I get asked a lot is how do I get to be a vendor, right? So everybody wants to know, not my cousin, but everybody wants to know how do I become a vendor? And so an education on that process would be great. But why vendor A over vendor B? So if you could just remind us, who was a part of the vetting of all this peer review data?
We went through 2 review processes. Mm-hmm. So the first phase was educators from the school, so teachers.
Our schools? Mm-hmm. Here in Nashville?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yes. Keep going.
And they used the rubrics. Then once the vendors that made it through that phase mm-hmm. were chosen to move on to phase 2, and that is where our central office leaders applied the rubric with more intensity to the interventions that met phase 2.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the previous question.
Okay. We need a second. She's called for the question.
The previous question.
You want me to state the motion again?
Please.
The motion is to schedule a teaching and learning committee meeting in August to give staff time to gather data on the 11 interventions and then vote on the contracts in late August.
We have a motion, and it's been properly seconded.
We need so she's calling the question, so do we need
Yes.
a 2/3 vote
We have
to
to vote
close
on
for
that
closure?
We need a 2/3 vote on that one? Okay.
And we're voting on moving them to August and voting on them then.
Right now,
Right now, we're voting
to
whether
stop
whether
the
to stop
question.
Or so
discussion.
we just move in so we can get to
Just
Ms.
I don't know where
Call
Spearing's
for the
motion.
We're just voting on calling for the question at this point.
Is there any opposition to moving the previous question?
I just want to make one comment.
I don't know what we're
Is he
voting.
on iPads to vote?
Dr. Gentry made the motion. Who made a second?
Wasn't a
Or
second.
did it have to have a second? Does it have to? I'm asking.
Robert's Rules of Order, no. No, it doesn't.
Second to call the question. Okay, cool.
Unless there's staunch opposition.
Did someone have, did you want to make a comment?
I just want to make a comment, that's all.
Yeah.
I just want
Well,
to say,
let her make her motion, and then you can make the comment. Then that opens it up for discussion.
You made
So
your
what
motion.
are we voting on? Are we voting on her motion?
Closing debate.
Yeah,
We need
closing
6
the vote.
votes.
There's opposition to closing the debate.
Gotcha. I see.
Close debate.
I had to put a second, so I just put Dr. Gentry's second.
Doppelganger.
Okay, the motion to call the question and debate has passed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 votes. Thank you.
It's 2/3. So that was 2/3.
And 3 no's, right. Okay, now we'll entertain a motion to,
Ms. Spearing, restate her
oh,
motion.
that's right.
You want me to repeat it again?
Yeah.
I move to schedule a teaching and learning committee meeting in August to give staff time to gather data on the 11 interventions and professional developments, and then vote on these contracts in late August.
Who was your second?
Who
second,
seconded
I
it?
seconded it.
My iPad isn't charged. Sorry.
This fails, we have to take.
Okay, so the motion to delay the vote until August fails. It did not pass.
I move that we accept the contracts that were pulled from the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all right, any discussion? Yes, ma'am?
all right, I just had 2 comments that I want to make. First of all, in response to Ms. Bugg's comments, this is the first year I've ever heard complaints about the RFP process, so that's why I'm raising concerns. This is really in 6 years, I've never heard this level of complaints, so that's why I think we should be very careful about following procedures. And then, I really was waffling on voting on in the last vote because I don't want to slow down progress for the teachers. However, at our last meeting, I just made the same complaint. We keep getting contracts brought to us, and then we're told, if you don't vote for this, you're holding the district hostage. Then that means that we're expected to be rubber stamps, and we really need to be considered part of this process. So there needs to be enough time so that if we do not agree with the contract, that there are alternatives in place. There are ways that we can address issues that come up, and also, I would support having a larger discussion because we seem to be around a lot of these contracts, it seems to be political. Like we had the reading recovery, which we just took away real quick, and then we have other ones that we're like lingering on. And I just think we need to be having more robust discussions, particularly about literacy, since that's sort of a point of contention. I think it would be helpful just to have a teaching and learning meeting to follow up on some of the concerns that have been raised. But I certainly want, I'm glad there is a clear RFP process in place here, and I certainly want to support narrowing these options and then to have more data on what's really working so we can make changes as necessary as we move on. So
I just want to make sure we're clear about something. The purpose of a consent agenda is so that we don't have to take the time to re-vet vetting that has already taken place. That's the consent agenda is to allow us to expeditiously move through a meeting. But if it's starting to feel like rubber stamping, we need a different process. So, because we're not using the consent agenda the way a consent agenda was designed to be used. So I don't know if that's a Corey Harkey discussion about what we do differently. A teaching and learning committee meeting was never designed for a contract approval. It was supposed to be my understanding when we formed the committee was to help us understand just what teaching and learning strategies and just giving us an update, and so that, again, we weren't using that board meeting time. So if we're going to if we feel that the current process of contract approval is not giving us enough time to re-vet the vetted contracts, then we need a different process other than consent agenda, because we're not consenting to anything. So I don't know if that's a governance discussion for you, Amy. I think we do need to reach out with David Sevier and Corey Harkey to figure out what we do differently. But if we're going to keep pulling things from the consent agenda, it defeats the purpose of having the consent agenda.
I only want to mention that I would caution us against trying to supersede what teachers suggest. So when administration comes to us and says that they've not only worked with MNEA and SEIU, but that they have vetted this through teachers, I was a teacher, but I'm not now. I respect the teachers. If the teachers say that this is good for them, if they've looked at the research and they liked it, if they think they can implement it and it be efficient and appropriately used for our students, I don't want us to get in the boat where we say, well, we heard from the community, but the teachers said, so we end up going against what teachers want. I just, at the end of the day, I'm always going to support what teachers want. If teachers have vetted this, then thank you, administrators, for reaching out to teachers. Thank you, Dr. Huth, for always working with us. We can't go against teachers.
And we also have to be very careful that we can't hold the director accountable when he brings through his administration strategies. And teachers. Strategies to achieve the goals that we've set forth and agreed to as a board if we're going to change those tools that he uses. We can't hold him accountable for that. So we've got to figure out something totally different. If they come and say, I need this hammer and this saw, and I'm like, no, research says a screwdriver and an awl would be better, and then we don't hit the target, that's on us. That is on us. So we've got to just be careful about this line that we're walking.
I would like to see a list of the teachers who were part of this vetting process. Would you get that to the board? Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your information.
Thank you.
We do appreciate that. Thank you very much. We will move on to.
I think we still have a vote.
Oh, we have a vote.
Yes.
That was just all discussion.
Okay, that's not the right one.
Thank you.
Uggs, can you restate, please?
I move that we accept the contracts that were pulled from the consent agenda.
And who seconded? Okay, it was seconded. interested, yeah.
Really, sis, not present? It didn't pop up,
It didn't even pop up.
but clearly I'm a yes. Yeah.
Andrew, you're not here.
I am
It
here.
said not present.
Is it right now?
Yeah, it's
Yes,
right,
right now.
right, it's right. Okay, so the motion to approve the contracts pulled from the consent agenda passes. Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move on to the director's report. Mr. Henson.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. I'll ask Deborah Story and her team if they will please come and give the board and the public a hiring update.
Good evening. Deborah Story and Sharon Patiller. I'm not sure if I've introduced Sharon formally, but Sharon's the Executive Officer for Human Resources Talent Strategies. She oversees recruiting, employee relations, and compensation, and our HR partners. This is the time of the year when most people are taking vacations. Not for human resources. This is when we're dug in high gear, filling all the teacher and school-based and other school-related positions. So what we want to do is kind of give you an update on where we are today. And leave this to Sharon.
Thank you, guys. I'm really excited about where we are today, especially compared to where we were last year at this time. Do I have access? Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Right now, as a district, we have 189 teacher vacancies. Broken down by quadrant, the northwest quadrant, we have 49, northeast 39, southeast 67, and the southwest 34. Last year at this time, we had 266 teacher vacancies. So today we have put in a lot of work. The work isn't just completed by our recruiters or our HR partners. Our principals do a lot of work, as well as the teachers that refer individuals to our district. This in comparison, this is a one-year comparison. So what we wanted to do was to really take a look at those schools where they had 4 or more teacher vacancies. And so we broke that down by quadrant. So again, you have the numbers, but if you look at the northwest quadrant, we also identified those high need areas so you could see where they were. Jerry Baxter currently has 9. 2 of those are exceptional ed, 1 math. Jolton Middle School has 6, and 2 of them are exceptional ed. With Northeast, they have the 39. McGavick High School has 11, 3 exceptional ed, 3 math, 1 science, and 1 Spanish, or what we consider a war language. Stratford High School, 4, 1 math, 1 science. Southwest, their total of 34. The ones where there were 4 more, we had Hillsborough High School with 5, and 3 of them are math. McMurray, 4 with 1 EE, 1 EL. Oliver Middle, 4, 1 EL, 2 math. Antioch High School over in the southeast, 11. 2 EL, 1 math, 2 science, and 3 Spanish positions. Antioch Middle School has 7, 1 EE, 1 EL, and a math. 7 at Cane Ridge High School, 6 at Cane Ridge High School. Glencliff High School, 5, as you can see, 2 EL. JFK has 6 with 3 exceptional ed, 1 EL, 1 science, and last but not least was Thurgood Marshall with 6, and they have 1 each need in EE, EL, and Spanish. So as you can see at those schools where we have broken it down by those high need areas, If you take a look at the district-wide high-need vacancies, you'll see that we have right now 31 exceptional ed positions available, 29 EL, 14 math, 4 pre-K exceptional ed, 12 science, and 6 Spanish. So that's where we are with our teacher vacancies. We wanted to share some of our strategies with you, and first and foremost, our priority, our number one priority, is to fill existing vacancies with qualified teachers. Right now, our recruiters and our HR partners are strategizing about how they can have a interview meet and greet by quadrant. So they're going to be going out and assisting with the screening of those candidates and making offers on the spot so that we can get even closer to having all of our vacancies filled by the first day of school. We also want to make sure that we coordinate substitute staff assignments, and even overstaffing with subs in those areas of EE, so that we can also offer some additional planning and training, because if you take into consideration the training that the exceptional ed certificated teachers have, just to throw someone in day one is just not rational. So we're going to be partnering with our exceptional ed or our special ed department to offer some additional training, as well as coordinating the utilization of central office staff that are licensed and other auxiliary staff, whether CP, SIP facilitators, to help fill some of these vacancies on an interim basis. We're also considering adjusting staffing, combining classrooms, and utilizing subs to support the teacher of record, as well as working with quadrant leadership to monitor and adjust for staffing needs during that first week where we may see that we don't have as many enrolled and as we projected, so that we can be nimble and make changes quicker.
These are your contingency plans.
Those are our contingency plans in the event that we don't fill all of them. So that brings us to the. We can go back. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them if I can.
I have a few questions,
Okay.
just around the certification process. Are we still having issues with the state? I mean, what you all were able to do last year, where you used college professors, is that still feasible to be able to pull them in and certify them to teach? Are we getting any results from that?
Yeah, and we did. And so, again, MNPS was the first school district to utilize that. We did run into some hiccups. The state they're in the process, so I'm definitely not throwing them under the bus or anything, but they're in the process of creating an application for this. So they're working with us and holding for those individuals that have already taken and passed the praxis. They have their 3 years college teaching experience. So yes, we plan on really targeting that. We're just sort of kind of at a stalemate right now, waiting on them to develop the application. We've also submitted our alternative certification application to the state, and we had a conference call with the director of licensure on Monday, just yesterday, regarding our alternative certification application. So there's still a possibility that we may become a certifying body in and of ourselves before the first day of school. And yes, we will be the first. Yay, MNPS. So I'm excited about that in the state. So, and they said that they're going to use us as a pilot. So I'm really looking forward to this, to a collaborative effort that we're going to undergo so that others in need could do it.
I do have a couple of questions myself. With McGavock High School being the largest high school in the district, what's the likelihood of getting those 11 positions filled by the time school starts?
Well, I think what we're going to have to do is to look, especially since those 11, 3 of them were EE and 3 of them were math. We're going to go back and look at the candidates that have applied and screen. That's what they're doing right now. So I want to be optimistic, but I don't want to say, yes, we're going to have all of them fill by the first day of school. Is it possible? It could be possible, but we're going to have to look at what our talent pool looks like as well. So.
Because there was another school, was it Antioch, that had 11 vacancies as well? Yeah, and that seems kind of high to me, but hope, we'll keep our fingers crossed. So, I mean, kudos that last year at this time we were at 266 and we're almost 100 underneath that at this point in time. So, I mean, so of the 167, I hate to bring this up, but how many of those are the teacher recovery teachers that, reading recovery teachers that we were trying to place?
I am.
You can get that to us if you don't have that tonight.
Oh,
That's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Just curious, actually.
I think it was a total of, and that included the lead reading recovery teachers. We had a total, I think it was 85 or 84 initially.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if that's exactly it, but it was pretty close.
The majority of the reading recovery teachers did go to schools. Some of them went into the classroom. Some of them are interventionalists. We have some LTDSs, but the vast majority of them are classroom teachers, and we can give you an exact number. Okay.
Are all of the reading recovery teachers placed? Do they all have a position at this point?
There's one person that we need to get confirmation on. She was offered a job and then rejected it. I just need to confirm did she secure another position. Other than that, everyone else with either accepted a position, resigned, or retired. We had 12 resignations.
Also, some of the principals have chosen to keep them in their schools as a reading recovery teacher of record. So, yeah.
That was where I was going with my questioning. I was going to ask if any of the schools decided to continue to fund the reading recovery program, and really if you have any idea as to how many there are that are going to, you may or may not, but just that will still be not serving as a reading specialist, but as actual still utilizing the reading recovery program, because I know we left that option available to them.
Yes, and so we surveyed principals last week to inquire about that very thing. We want to know how many reading recovery teachers, or those with the training, will maintain their certification. In order to maintain their certification, they would still have to work with 4 students every 12 to 20 weeks, receive the professional development, and have school visits by the reading recovery teacher leaders. So we should know soon what that number is. But there are reading recovery teachers who will continue with their certification but not hold the title of reading recovery teacher. Does that help?
Yes, my questioning was really related to that school's budget and just how that reading recovery would impact their student-based budgeting in that school. So, but that's great. I'm glad you were forward-thinking and trying to gather that data, and please, we can't wait to hear. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, thank you, ladies. We do appreciate that. Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Part 2, yay. So it's the paraprofessional position upgrade. So first and foremost, we want to say thank you to our city council. This is a country girl from Walter Hill trying to use some of these languages. Merci beaucoup. To Dr. Joseph and the board, gracias. We could not have done this without you guys supporting our district. So on behalf of the paraprofessionals, we really appreciate the support that you gave to get us to this point. So where are we today? Our current count, as of 5/8, we had 908 paraprofessionals in that classification. The current average salary for our paras is $13.52, and currently that is a job grade 4. So what does job grade 4 mean? Well, what it means is the minimum for that classification or for that job is $11.57, and the maximum is $17.29. Our future state, where we're going, is it's going to be reclassed to a job grade 6, where the minimum is going to be $13.48, and the maximum will be $20.22. What does that mean for the future state for MNPS? Well, it means an improved ability to recruit and retain paras. And currently, our current vacancy for paras, we have 65. Before I go into this next slide, I will share with you that 76% of the funds that were allocated is going to come from the majority of those that are not at the minimum of that grade. So $827,999.21 will be moving them to the minimum of the grade. That represents about 579 or 63% of our current staff that are going to get a considerable increase as a result of this. The remainder of those funds will go to those individuals that were already at the minimum of the grade, and that's $255,000. $255,479. The total allocations is going to be $1,083,400. The remainder of those dollars are going to pay for the related insurance, taxes, and pension costs. And with that being said, I do want to share that we had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Brad Rayson, and there is a little bit of concern that the majority of the money is going toward making those individuals that are not paid to minimum, keeping them whole. But we did weigh a couple of options to get to that point.
I'm sorry, could you explain that again?
I will. So the majority of the money is going to go toward those that are not paid to market right now. So those that are under the minimum of that grade 6.
That was like the majority of our paraprofessionals were not being paid at market rate.
That is correct.
And that was the 63.8%, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry. So you're saying that Mr. Rayson was just concerned that this is an issue now, or concerned that we're not putting more money toward the hiring?
And I'd like to give him an opportunity to share what his concerns were, but we wanted to be transparent so that you guys knew where the majority of those monies were going. So this was not a slotting, so that if you were on job grade 25, not job grade 25, but on step 25, you didn't automatically move to 25. Whereas you had individuals that were on 0, they moved to 0 at that 1348. If you had someone being paid $11.57, they would receive that $2 and something. And that's where the majority of our folks were the step 0 to 4.
I'm sorry. So just so I'm clear. So 63.8% of our employees were making $11 an hour.
We had the average. The average is 13. The majority were on steps 0 through 4. And I didn't bring what step 4 was, but obviously you know that it's low when our midpoint was, do you have it? Let me see. We don't have it. It was just low, 11, 12, no more than $13 an hour.
That's okay. That's a good soundbite. So up until now, our parapros, on average, were paid between $11 and $13 an hour, and a majority of the extra money that we get from council is being used literally just to make sure that these people have mustard to go with their ketchup. Like literally just moving them up to the bare minimum. Oh my goodness. Okay.
Our average, today, our average parapro salary is, if you put it in annual numbers, $19,600 a year. Today's average. When they get this adjustment, the beginning salary will be $19,600.
So the average salary was $19K, and now the beginning salary. You got that, Jason?
Thumbs up, he says.
Yeah, I fool with Jason. I appreciate him. I do.
And I think I understand. I'm almost 100%. I just want to reiterate that means that if you're already at a level 6 or grade 6, you won't get raised 2 more. Exactly.
So currently, our parapros are not at a grade 6; they're at a grade 4. So the step. So if they were on a step 6, that didn't mean they automatically moved to step 6. If they were on a grade 25, that didn't mean they automatically moved to a 25. So with the maximum, I'll go back and make it a little bit clearer. So the maximum currently for our paras on a grade 4, let me go back. On a grade 4, the maximum is $17.29. Now with the new grade, the upgrade, with it being a grade 6, they did not automatically move to that maximum of $20.22 an hour.
They just go up.
We took. So the minimum percentage, we'll go back and look because we're still working out that model. Our anticipation is that regardless of where you were, they're all going to receive an increase, because a lot of those individuals, I think we may had 77, let me see if I brought it, that were on step 25, they had already reached a class ceiling. They weren't, there were no more steps for them. Now I think the highest step that someone will go to is going to be a 17, so they have those additional steps to get to, as well as receiving an increase for the 18-19 school year.
So you all haven't reached an agreement with SEIU, but you're still in communication with them, or are these numbers pretty much set in stone?
We're in communications with them, but the goal of upgrading the paras is twofold. 1, to help us recruit, and 2, to retain. And so moving everyone to the grade 6, we think will accomplish those 2 goals.
And so, so what we're doing right now is finalizing the upgrade model that we're going to use. And once we do that, we're going to finalize the rate change letter and get it out to them. And the plan is to have this completed this week. The week of the 16th, we're going to distribute those notification letters. We're going to be sending them to the parents' home, so they'll know exactly what this means for them, as well as uploading the new rates, this change in grade, to EBS. And we should have that completed by 7/25. And on 8/3, when they return, that's when the new rates are going to be effective, and they should see that on their 8/24 paycheck.
Okay, if I could just ask, Dr. Severe, if you don't mind, would you send this out to the board so our parapros don't think that just as half of us are here that we don't care about them? They missed the presentation. Appreciate you.
Do you guys have any questions?
I have one. I have one question around the timing of when they'll receive the raise. So they return to work on Friday, August the 3rd, and so they won't see that reflected until their August 24th paycheck? That's a long time.
That is their first paycheck. August 3rd is the beginning of a pay period, and we're paid in arrears.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, concerns?
Informative. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies.
I'm sorry, if I
knew
could-
it was too good to be true.
The only question I have is that I do know that you all have said that we're doing a certification program through MNPS. What are we looking like with implementation? Are we looking like next year we might be able to start that? Just wondering for an update.
We're hoping we may be able to start it this year. They said that they said next week. They'll let us know where we were. So our plan is, first, we're going to take those individuals that already have a 4-year degree and can pass the praxis. So if there are individuals out there, they may be able to go into the classrooms this school year.
Wow. Okay.
That's a big deal. The proposal was submitted to the Department of Education in April, and they said it's going to take about 90 days. So we're knocking on the 90-day time frame, and so as Sharon mentioned, they're going to have a meeting or a call next week, and then once we get approval, we'll get the ball rolling.
Dr. Severe, could you also, if you don't mind, I'm sorry, last thing to add to your list, if you could send that out also, because I feel like all 9 of us need to know and need to be telling community members, because that's a very big deal.
So I still have to
Very
pass the
big deal.
praxis, though?
And that praxis ain't no joke. So
Yes, you do.
What did she say?
we won't highly qualify.
Well, the goal is, we would be helping our employees to pass the praxis. You won't be on your own. We're providing support.
Stop it.
Oh, I was hoping David was here. So many people have volunteered to do praxis prep, to help and
You know what? I know Miss Spearing is an educator. She might want to volunteer.
All right.
I know I wouldn't mind.
Voluntold. I see the way she's looking.
Oh, let me.
I got you on that SLP when that other stuff. No.
No, really, if you wouldn't mind maybe just throwing a little something in there if there is a way for us to volunteer, help however we can.
Great, that's great. So if I have more than a 4-year degree, do I still have to take the
You
praxis?
still got to take the practice.
Yes, you do, unfortunately.
Yes,
Yeah.
doctor.
I'm never going to be a school teacher.
Welcome to our life.
But you could be a sub without it. You can substitute without the
No grandfathering.
the
You
license.
ain't no grandfathering.
This is wonderful, though. Thank you.
Ain't just enough.
Thank you. Thank
Do they
you.
still throw spitballs at substitutes?
All right, we're going to move on to chair report. And before I do that, I just want to give a shout out to my colleagues, Mr. Pinkston and Dr. Gentry. They did an awesome job with our director eval. First time we've had an electronic product that wasn't a 30-page package of spreadsheets. And so it was, yes, so it was wonderful. And so over the weekend, we got the results in aggregate and also individual evaluations from all 9 of us. So I appreciate my colleagues for participating and for Sharon and Will for doing such a great job. So at the risk of boring my colleagues who have already heard me tell the story, I'm going to say it again for the viewing audience. So often we hear about things in public education that we need to improve. And so, we get that. That's our job here. So I just want to say the last week of June, I had the opportunity to visit New York City with my husband, Larry. We were celebrating a big wedding anniversary. And so we got there on a Wednesday, and we had tickets to go see Aladdin. Well, there's a young man who graduated from McGavick High School who's playing standby for 3 different roles in Aladdin, one of them being Genie. The week before we got there, he played the role of Genie 5 nights. And so we got to meet up with Deontay Warren is his name. He graduated from from McGavick High School in 2006. He graduated with our youngest son. He was always an outstanding choral and music student. The choral director took him under his wings, and long story, he got a 4-year degree from Belmont in music, and now he's performing on Broadway. And yes, it gives me good chill bumps. And so the thing he said that I remember so vividly is he said, Miss Anna, I can make my rent. Because how many people, New York City is like Nashville on steroids where musicians are concerned. They have so many actresses and actors and they are trying to make it. The show was phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that was one treat. Well, that was the first success story for MNPS. The second one was we got to go see a Yankees game and they were playing the Red Sox. Mr. Henson got to go see the Red Sox on their turf. We were watching the Red Sox on the Yanks turf. And so Mookie Betts is a 2011 graduate from Overton High School. He plays right field for the Boston Red Sox, and he is on fire. When we saw him, he was the only Red Sox player to cross home plate. The next night, however, the Red Sox, it was a shutout. They beat the Yanks 9-0. And these two teams are neck and neck. If one wins, they get in first place. If the other one wins, they get in first place. So, I mean, it was a sold-out game. It was wonderful. We rode the subway. It was super packed, but everybody took care of everybody else, so I didn't get lost because, I'm not a New York City girl, but we will go back. So I just wanted to share these two great MNPS success stories that, I got to experience. So, we have so many more out there, but I just wanted to highlight these two. So that's my report. It's all you.
Be there no further business? Yeah, this meeting is adjourned. Okay.
Making sure. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.